Hi, this is Roger. Kitchen time. Talk about getting in a muddle. I was looking at this out of the corner of my eye, having recently watered it. Didn't look at the tag, and for some strange reason I thought, oh, Cattleya type, that'll go in a holy clay pot, so I can get on with that as a one-off because I haven't got anything else to go in a holy clay pot. And I've got it out here, and I thought it's not flipping Cattleya at all. Cattleya type, maybe, but it's actually a Guarechea. Oh God, what's the unpronounceable names? Guarechea. Guarechea, I suspect, or Guarechea. Black Comet, anyway. And how did this one come about? It came about because last time I went to Burnham's, in the private area there were a couple in flower, and the blooms were stunning, and for a Repotting type, which is what this really is, they were large and a very deep sort of purple colour, so I thought I liked that a lot, but they were in the private area, they weren't for sale. So I had a look on Spiceotic, and they had one, so I thought, well, we'll have that. And that's how it came about anyway. And as typically, if I see that type of pot, I immediately think import from the Far East, can't be bothered with a proper pot, every possible corner cut for price, and it's in moss. There are some live roots around. Some of these roots are going to fail, excuse me, because I'm going to change media, and some of them will object. But basically we have new roots starting, that's the important bit. So even if I lose some of the old ones, we'll keep some growing on. Now, I don't want to go too mad with this, but luckily this isn't packed too tight, but there won't be any live roots in the middle of this, they'll be gone. So the centre of this will have no purpose whatsoever, just needs coming out. And that's what I usually do with a moss based thing, is, you know, it's probably been potted on from, and the old moss left on, and, you know, put in a bigger pot with some new moss around the outside. That's where the roots will be. So I'm going careful because, as I said, there are some live roots coming out from the area where the new growth is, and I won't go mad and totally destroy the old roots. Now, this has obviously been grown on from a seedling. You can see the old seedling bulbs here, gradually getting larger up to this one, and a new growth which is now up to me to grow up to size. Now, the last bulb had a sheath. The chances of that blooming are practically zero, on the grounds that the plant has now got some stress, on the grounds that it's changed its environment. It's gone from growing in a nursery to coming here, so that's a form of stress, and now it's going to have its media changed, and as far as the roots are concerned, it's probably quite a dramatic change, so some will fail. But yeah, you can see those live roots coming down through here, so as I said, that will probably do for the poking around. The rest will be the running under the tap bit, and just wash this off and see what we've got. I just like to do some of it so that you get an idea of you know, this sort of process, just loosening things off, finding out where the live roots are, finding out where there's probably going to need some trimming because there's going to be some old dead roots. You might be lucky and there aren't any, but there usually are. Yeah, so we'll give that a run under the tap, and as I've discovered now, it's not a Cattleya. I don't need a holy clay pot, I'll need an ordinary pot, and I'll have obviously changed my mind on the media. We won't be going for large chunky bark, will we? Oh dear, I need more coffee. And I need to not do these sort of things early in the day, which is what it is today. I nearly went out for the day. There was an advert for an open day at the carnivorous nursery, which is not too far from here. Well, it's about 45-50 miles, something like that. And they're normally open by appointment. but they've got an open weekend this weekend, and why I even saw that was because Lynn had obviously seen it, and it was an event on Facebook, so you can show interest, you can click interested, and then that will bring that up on everybody else's Facebook page that's related, if you know what I mean. So that's how I saw it, and I thought, well, I haven't got anything else to do this weekend, I might pop along to that. That would make an interesting video. Loads of well, a carnivorous plant nursery. You know, this is quite a big deal. They've won gold at Chelsea Flower Show for donkey's years. You know, it's one of the largest. Well, it's the largest in the country, I assume, and extensive. You know, very large glass houses and everything. So it would have been an interesting video. But then I thought, it's a long way to go when it's raining on a not very nice day to do a video. I'll do one at home. That's why I'm doing this one. You know. Anyway, I'll give that a rinse under the tap, and then we'll get that potted up. It's not going to be too much of a big deal. As I said, I just want to hopefully maintain the growing roots here and keep them growing, and hopefully they will tolerate the media change. So we'll see how we go. I'll be back. Right, so there we go. That moss washed off very easily, and I've taken the two smallest pseudo bulbs off. They had no leaf, and I've trimmed a few roots, but not too many. I didn't want to go too mad. There's all the hallmarks of some of these what look like older roots actually branching out, having been disturbed. It does show a branching nature. So anyway, what we've got is that size pot, which is a little large. It'll grow into it. The next size down that I've got is too small. So we'll put some chunky bark in the bottom, because the roots are not going to go down to the bottom of the pot, and I'll pot it low. Right, and then what we've got is, this is the first time this is going to get used. This is, well, it's a mix, but it's my Burnham's bark that was classed as medium, which I've been using as small, but last time I went there I actually got some large, which I'm classing as medium. So in my book this is a mix of Burnham's medium and small, but in reality it's not. I mean, if you look at it, that is not large bark. So I'm just finding bits to pick out of it at the moment. So we have a mix of that. That will be the basis for this. The small bark will help areas stay moist, and this will be a bit of an experiment, because when I got the bag of new bark home, I was warned, it was quite damp, and I put it out in my green tray, which I often use for repotting, in the sunshine for quite a few days, and thoroughly dried it off. But there is no guarantee that that mould won't come back once this gets wet, so it's a bit of an experiment. And I'm going to add in some non-soaked, unsorted cocoa stuff, but I am going to do a bit of sorting, because this latest bag came with a lot more hairy bits than the previous bag, and I don't like too much of that, so I will sort it a little bit. As I say, the hairy bits are useful. They do hold moisture to a degree, but not a lot. It's strange that that will hold a lot less moisture than that. So, you know, I take some of it out, but I'm not spending hours sorting through the whole blinking bag. I'll just do it as and when required. And then, because this bag hasn't been sorted, as far as the pieces of cocoa husk are concerned, they go from tiny to quite large and chunky. And again, I'm not going to sort them out, they will go in as they are. So some large, some small, and then the medium and the small bark. So that's that. And then, as usual, for reasons not necessarily known by me, I'm going to add some charcoal. And I tend to do this nearly all the time now. The time I wouldn't do it is obviously on a mount, and if I was doing a holy clay pot with just large chunky bark. But It has been deemed by many people that it is a very useful additive in an orchid media because it helps absorb excess nutrients and pollutants and things like that, because it gets used in filters and it serves that purpose. Whether it actually does a good job at doing that in a pot full of orchid roots, I don't know. And I've got no way to prove it whatsoever. Right, so we'll chuck some of that in. So I'm just looking, because I want this quite low in the pot, but obviously it needs enough media in the bottom to get into, but I want it sat quite low in the pot. Oldest pseudo bulbs up against the back of the pot, latest growth pointing towards the middle. That gives it its maximum room to expand. Yeah? Maximum room. And then we will tap and gently trickle this media down into those roots without any bashing, to try not to bruise them and bash them around too much, rather than the old style Roger, which was practically jamming them in with my fist. We don't do that anymore, but we do need a little bit of compression. I've noticed in some of my pots where I've done this gently approach, once it's watered in and settled, you know, which means that the media is starting to hold moisture for longer as it begins its aging process, I've noticed that it's very loose and can be pressed down quite easily, which means there's probably a bit too much air in there. But when it's wet and nicely sort of broken in, so to speak, pressing it down doesn't do so much harm. Now what I've got to do now is think, see, it's very unstable at the moment, and that's because I've used the media dry, yeah, and I can't compress it. So there's a great big bit on the top which I don't want. So I can either try staking that. Yeah, I think we will. I think we just put one stake and one clip around that largest pseudo bulb. I'll be back. I've bought a couple in case one doesn't work. You never know. And I think what we're going to do here, I'm going to try and grab it. Yeah, I think I will. So we put one down one side at an angle, try and get it as firm as possible, and then put one down the other side, forming a cross. Come on, go down in there, you. And then what we do, as long as those two are reasonably firm, which they are, we get a small grabby clip and clamp the two stakes together like that. That's now got it. Yeah, so it saves tying, you know, it saves getting some raffia out or some string or something like that. Just cross them over somewhere where you can get reasonable firm grip, and use a clamp, clip, tie, whatever you want, but right, so that's that done. Now that could get a good watering today. It could get a good watering today and again tomorrow, and that's probably what it will get. But if I water it today and then just put it to one side in my normal watering schedule, that'll be bone dry tomorrow, because the cocoa husk in this is bone dry, and it will take in moisture when I water it, but it won't take in that much. And then between all of those media types, by the time it gets to tomorrow, most of that will have evaporated out and it'll be dry, which I don't want. I want it damp. So it'll probably get watered every 2 days for now. Once I see it starting to hold water for longer, that will work. The other alternative would be to put it into soak. What would happen if I put that into soak up to there? What do you think would happen to all the media on the top of the pot? It would float off. So there's no point in trying to soak it when it's bone dry, because it'll just float out. However, once it's damp, you might get away with soaking it, but I will deal with that. I think I'll just chuck the original label back in. Somebody left a comment a while back. You spent good money on a perfectly good label maker and lots of different coloured labels so that you could label all your orchids in sets with nice readable labels. Why don't you use it? I have no answer apart from the fact I can't be bothered yet. I'm sure one day I will, but not now. So that's the reason it doesn't get used. Plus it's fiddly. You know, uppercase, lowercase. Trying to find a single quote mark. All the things that you need when you start thinking about the characters you need. It's not just letters. I mean, I know some people that make labels like that, which is not bad. Yeah, that's not bad at all. But strictly speaking, this should be in italics. You try doing that on a label maker. Half a line in italics and the other half not. It's fiddly, and it's going to take some practice and a bit of looking at the manual, which is why it doesn't get used yet. It will one day. One day I will pick a small set of orchids and I will sit down and try and do all the labels for them, because I can just copy them off my notes. It's not like I've got to go into the grow room and find all the tags, some of which aren't there anyway. But that's why it's not getting used at the moment. It would have to become a habit, so that every time something gets repotted or a new orchid comes in, I use the label maker. But the initial workload to get a label on everything is well, it may never get done. Anyway, that's that one done, so that's that kitchen time done. The next kitchen time will be the others that are in moss. Two of which are Masdevallias, I know, and they're okay for the time being. They're not in breaking down moss to any extent, they're okay. And then we've got the large mount still to do, the Friedrichsianum, once the flowers are fully finished. So the roots are starting to show now, so it would be a good time to get on and do it. And then there's quite a few new growths, so a new root system is about to be created, so that would be a good time to do. That would be a big one to do. So there we go, but there really isn't much around in the way of repotting at the moment, and I certainly wasn't going to do any of it in that heat we've just had. So anyway, we'll go from there. See you next time.